Talking bot. Prometheus is a 2012 origin alien movie, directed by original Alien director Ridley Scott. To get the franchise back on track with a new angle, by explaining away all of the mystery of Alien. What was the space jockey sitting in the chair? How did it come to be there? What was the donut ship? Where was it headed? Why did it have a cargo hold full of alien eggs? As in keeping with a modern trend of shitting all over the mystery of a classic film, by remaking it, Prometheus attempts to fill in the gap before Alien, by explaining who the space jockeys are. Not since the travesty of Phantom Menace has a movie been so eagerly hyped up, and so royally fucked up. More of that later. Prometheus begins with a big UFO hanging over a waterfall, watching a seriously ripped, big blue Smurf on steroids, in his birthday outfit. What's that? A big bowl of black Heinz soup? Anyway, the soup kills him, and he falls into the waterfall. The UFO then takes off. Next we see what looks like his DNA rearranging. Is this how humans were created? Next, we see a bunch of people digging in Scotland somewhere, and finding some cave paintings of a being pointing to a star cluster. We then meet the two terminally dull main characters. Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, played by Noomi Rapace, and her boyfriend, Dr. Charlie Holloway, played by some guy. Next, we are aboard Prometheus, a ship on an exploratory mission to follow the symbols from the cave paintings to their source. We meet David, the creepy English android caretaker. The rest of the crew are in hypersleep. If you follow your alien lore, this isn't going to end well for the android. Dismemberment is likely. But what's he doing? Apart from watching old movies, and recreating Scrawny Weaver's basketball three-pointers from Resurrection, he's creepily tapping into Dr. Shaw's hypersleep dreams. Here's one where she is having a lazy hookup. Only joking. Dreaming about her missionary father, who died from Ebola. But there's no time for any more voyeurism as the ship has arrived. The crew wake up. Who do we have? The butch female commander, the laid-back Rasta captain, and a bunch of different scientists, including Space Johnny Rotten. We meet a holographic video of the long-dead funder of this mission, Peter Wayland, original founder of Wayland-Yutani. Get it? Why couldn't they have got an actual older guy? Guy Pearce with makeup looks unconvincing.
I have spent my entire lifetime contemplating the questions. Where do we come from? What is our purpose? What happens when we die? The Titan, Prometheus, wanted to give mankind equal footing with the gods. For that, he was cast from Olympus. Well, my friends, the time has finally come for his return. Doctors, please.
Shaw and that guy then explain why they have flown halfway across the galaxy, following a bunch of vague cave paintings. The crew remain unconvinced, especially Space Johnny Rotten.
So you're saying we're here because of a map you two kids found in a cave, is that right?
Next we are off to meet the butch commander, Vickers, in her luxury separatable lifeboat. Look. She has a big meta chair. Probably a lady shaver. Is this important to the plot? We will find out later. She lays down a few ground rules. Vickers then tells the doctors that she is in charge of this mission, not them, as Wayland paid for all of this. There's no time to argue though, as Prometheus has reached its destination, a planet. The ship enters the atmosphere. and begins scanning for life. But strangely, it's Dr. Holloway who notices a weird-looking unnatural structure. Prometheus then lands and they get suited and booted, and make their way to the structure. They enter the structure, and begin mooching around. Space Johnny Rotten has some cool flying mapping walls. They'll have this place explored in no time. No chance of anyone getting lost. I am. Next. The scientists detect they're inside the structure, so disregarding disease control protocol, decide to remove their helmets. Why? Next. David finds a control panel and sets off a holographic recording of the Smurfs running away from something. It's quite an eerie effect. One of them is decapitated under a sliding door. Kind of backs up Shaw's theory of an alien race. And Space Johnny Rotten suddenly isn't so cocky now he has seen the headless alien.
Look, I'm just a geologist. I like rocks. I love rocks. Now it's clear you two don't give a shit about rocks, but what you do seem to care about is gigantic dead bodies. And I don't really have anything to contribute in the gigantic dead body arena! I'm gonna go back to the ship, if you don't mind. Anyone want to join me, hey? You staying?
No, ship's good.
Yeah, ship very good. Congratulations on meeting your maker.
Thank you.
He runs away with one of the other scientists, no doubt having filled his spacesuit. What an anarchist. David opens the door into a big chamber, whilst Shaw attempts to recover the alien head. The chamber has a big statue of a head, and it's full of strange-looking pots. Look familiar? David's footprint seems to create a small worm-like creature. Is this from his bacteria? Or is it already there hiding in the dirt? Hard to tell. David starts fiddling with one of the pots and black goo starts coming out. Holloway spots an altar which looks like an alien head on the mural above it.
Oh no. Charlie, the murals are changing. I think we've affected the atmosphere in the room.
David bags one of the pots. Meanwhile, a storm is brewing, so the expedition are told to get back to Prometheus. Did any of them notice the skull on the hill? This looks bad. They make it back just in time, but Shaw's bagged alien head blows away, and she stupidly tries to save it. David opens a side door and manages to get them back in the ship. Oops. They have gone and left Space Johnny Rotten and his friend in the temple, and they can't get them back till after the storm. Back on Prometheus, Shaw and David begin examining the head. They then work out from the X-ray that the head is actually an exoskeleton and it comes off. Underneath is Patrick Stewart, or a human face. They notice that the head starts turning black, like the cells are reacting with the air, so they decide to torture the poor head by sticking a spike in it and pumping it full of electricity. Predictably, this doesn't go well and it starts having a seizure, before exploding everywhere. Meanwhile, David is having a conflab with someone, and he is given some secret instruction. Who could it be? He meets Vickers in the corridor. Who were they talking to? Was it this guy? But isn't he dead? All these questions. David goes back to his workshop, and begins playing about with a recovered pot. What are you going to do with that drop of black goo, David? You could hurt somebody with that. Meanwhile, Shaw has been studying DNA samples from the scanner's head, and comes to a startling discovery. Say, that looks like Tom Hardy from The Fighter. Oh, it's just Holloway.
I'm very sorry that your engineers are all gone, Dr. Holloway.
You think we wasted our time coming here, don't you?
Your question depends on me understanding what you hope to achieve by coming here.
What we hope to achieve was to meet our makers, to get answers. why they even made us in the first place.
Why do you think your people made me?
We made you because we could.
Can you imagine how disappointing it would be for you to hear the same thing from your creator?
I guess it's a good thing you can't be disappointed, huh?
Yes. It's wonderful, actually. May I ask you something?
Please do.
How far would you go to get what you came all this way for? Your answers. What would you be willing to do?
Anything and everything.
It's worth drinking to, I'd imagine.
What the fuck? Did he just spike Holloway's drink? Back at the temple. On Space, Johnny Rotten and his pal have found a big pile of dead engineer bodies, being used as a draft excluder. Yannick advises them that one of Space Johnny Rotten's mapping probes seems to have found a life sign. Shaw is watching the holographic video from the temple. She shares her massive discovery with a drunk Holloway.
Their genetic material predates ours. We come from them.
You kidding me?
No.
Because they made us.
And who made them?
Well, exactly. We'll never know. But here's what we do know. Is that there is nothing special about the creation of life, right? Anybody can do it. I mean, all you need is a dash of DNA and half a brain, right?
And then they get down to some loving. Say, I hope she made him wear protection. Doesn't Holloway now have a space STD? It must be in the air. Because a few minutes later Vickers goes sniffing for some as well.
You know, if you want to get laid, you really don't have to pretend to be interested in the pyramid scheme. I mean, you could just say, hey, trying to get laid.
I could say that, right? But then it wouldn't make sense why I would fly myself 500 million miles from every man on Earth if I wanted to get laid, would it?
Hey, Vickers, I was wondering, are you a robot?
My room. 10 minutes.
Well, if
Back in the temple. Space Johnny Rotten and his pal bizarrely decide to bed down in the room with the vases, even though they are spilling black goo all over the floor. The next bit ruins almost all of Prometheus's credibility. And this supposed biologist goes all gooey over a big blue swamp penis.
It's beautiful.
Look at you. Look at you, baby.
Hey man, it's not a dog. Was this the little worm before from David's loot? Grown up? One thing is for sure. I wouldn't go anywhere near that thing. Dr. Swamp Penis gets killed by it. And Space Johnny Rotten gets a visor full of acid. Back on the bridge, Yannick is busy showing Vickers his own swamp penis. So no one sees what happens in the temple. It's the morning after the night before and Holloway is a bit hungover. You know, when you do that thing when you are hungover, where you open your eye dead white and it's all bloodshot. What the fuck? He has a worm in his eye. This must be from David's poisoned nightcap. The crew gets suited and booted again for another look at the temple. David goes off on his own to check out the life form reading from Johnny Rotten's mapping wall. He finds a new room. In the room he finds more vases stacked up, but turns off his camera so Vickers can't see what's happening. In the room he finds a large circular metal platform. Look familiar? David's found the donut ship. Back to the others. Who have found the dead body of Dr. Swamp Penis and his deep throat cock monster. Space Johnny Rotten is nowhere to be seen. Holloway then has a spasmoid fit. So the crew take him back to the transport. Meanwhile, David finds another holographic video that shows the engineers starting up the donut ship. David sees they are heading for Earth. He then notices a cryo tube with an engineer in it. Meanwhile, Holloway's space STI is getting worse. And finally someone on Prometheus with half a brain exercises some disease control. Vickers. Who fries him. Shaw passes out due to the excitement. And awakes on the operating table. Where David tells her she's pregnant.
My. You're pregnant.
But she can't have kids as she is barren. David tells her Holloway impregnated her 8 hours ago. And now she is 3 months gone. With the world's first alien baby. David injects her with a sedative. And then goes all creepy on her.
Must feel like your God abandoned you.
What?
To lose Dr. Holloway after your father died under such similar circumstances. What was it that killed him? Ebola.
How do you know that?
I watched your dreams.
Shaw comes to. With her hair and makeup done. Did David do this for her? Or is it just bad continuity? Sometime later and escapes. She heads to Vickers' medi chair. Ah. I knew there was a point to that big chair. Shaw can't get it to do a cesarean. Damn Windows 8. She goes for the next best thing. Stomach trauma. Foreign object. And in the movie's most gross-out scene, performs a cesarean section on herself. The fetus is an alien, and its embryonic fluid explodes on Shaw's open wound. Erg. Shaw staples herself up and says goodbye to Junior, before sterilizing the medi-chair. Meanwhile, Yannick spots a camera feed from a spacesuit right outside the ship. But rather than turn the ship's security camera on it, or look out of a window, he sends one of his red shirts out to see what it is. It's Space Johnny Rotten, who has become a bit mutated and weird looking. What an anarchist. He goes on the rampage, killing a bunch of red shirts. They are all horrible shots as this thing lumbers about killing red shirts. So Yannick pops down and reverses over its head. Meanwhile Shaw is stumbling around the ship. Is that a 2001 Space Odyssey red spacesuit? Anyway, she stumbles through to another room and meets Whalen, who isn't dead and has stowed away aboard the ship. Well, it was his intention to fund this trip to discover some secret of eternal life. Well, you weren't surprised, were you? After all, simple logic made you work it out. I mean, who else could David have been talking to when he was instructed to test the space rehypnol out on Holloway? Whalen has some weird idea that the engineers can prolong his life. We also finally find out that Vickers is his daughter. But we don't care, as she has been such a non-entity throughout this movie. They invite Shaw to go with them. And before she goes, she speaks to Yannick.
Where the hell are you going, Doc? You know what this place is? Those, engineers, this ain't their home. It's an installation. Maybe even military. And they put it out here in the middle of nowhere because they're not stupid enough to make weapons of mass destruction on their own doorstep. That's what all that shit is in those vases. They made it here. They got out. They turned on them. The end. It's time for us to go home.
Yannick then tells Shaw that he won't allow the Black Goo to return to Earth, and he will do whatever it takes to stop it. This would probably be a good time for Shaw to tell Yannick about the suicide squid that's probably still alive in Vickers' quarters. But she doesn't. So off to the temple they go to wake the engineer that David found to get the secret of life. David tells them it's okay to remove their helmets. Shaw protests, saying it was probably the source of Holloway's infection. David says it wasn't. And Shaw finally works out he was probably behind Holloway's death. Shaw then shows Yannick and Vickers the vases. They then work out the vases are stored in a donut-shaped ship. David presses a few buttons. Shaw confronts him about the engineer's intentions.
Leaving to go where?
Earth.
Why?
Sometimes to create, one must first destroy.
They wake the engineer up from his cryo-sleep.
Leave him, David. Tell him we came, just like he asked.
Ask him where they're from.
What are you doing?
Ask him what's in his cargo. It killed his people.
Sure. Enough. David.
You made it here, and it was meant for us. Why?
Sure, enough. For God's sake, shut her up.
Was it? I need to know why. What did we do wrong?
Somehow they can shoot her. David, continue. Tell him why I came.
Manamai, Yana Murtu Steda, Uiva, on Itam, Sastater Creda.
But he's not in a good mood. And he pulls David's head off and smashes William in the face with it. Shaw escapes, and the engineer powers up the donut ship to finish its mission and destroy Earth. Yannick decides to follow through on his earlier promise and flies Prometheus up to face the donut ship. Vickers wisely decides to high-foot it, first detaching her luxury lifeboat, and then jumping in an escape pod. The donut ship is taking off, and Yannick powers Prometheus straight into the donut ship, crippling it, and destroying Prometheus, and it falls back to the surface. Shaw and Vickers are now trying to run away from it, but forgetting what direction a donut would roll inches, Vickers unwisely decides to try to run away from it, in a straight line, and gets crushed. Shaw makes it to the lifeboat, and finds out the baby squid is still alive and has grown massive. David, who is beside himself, makes contact with her.
Elizabeth, are you there? This is David.
Yeah, I'm here.
You need to get out immediately. He's coming for you.
The engineer has also survived the crash and it is mega pissed off. So it goes to the life pod to kill Shaw. But she manages to open the door and the baby squid gets him. Like when a fat woman sits on your face. Oh yeah, baby. David tells Shaw there are more donut ships and he can fly them. But Shaw doesn't want to go home. She wants to go to the Smurfs' homeworld and discover why they wanted to kill the humans. We get a final shot of the engineer give birth to something that looks vaguely familiar. The end.
There is an explanation for this, you know.
What's good about Prometheus? Prometheus is a visual treat. From beginning to end, it looks epic. The visuals are stunning. Think Blade Runner good. The CGI is never distracting or fake looking. The not LV-426 world looks alien and vast. The Skull Hill, the mapping walls, the light show in the donut ship are all standout moments. The eerie holographic videos and the alien-esque touches to the donut ship all have that Ridley Scott style. David is by far the best developed character, as much as the script will allow. The android who exudes the right mix of creepy English butler charm, intelligence, and childlike amazement. Some of the set pieces really work. including the horror of the self-cesarean section, and the squid baby. The donut ship takeoff. The donut ship itself looks authentic to the original Alien movie, including the elephant spacesuit.
Wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call. Bad call.
What's bad? Well, what have you got? Poorly handled concept. Stupid, useless characters, who in the main come across as paint-by-numbers war dispatch fodder. Stupid supposed intelligent people masquerading as scientists, who defy belief with their stupid antics. Lack of logic. Care. Most deserve to die. Things like removing their helmets because they sense air, and then affecting the atmosphere in the temple. Playing with the pots. Space Johnny Rotten and his pal getting lost in the temple, even though he bought the digital mapping balls. An old man who looks like he has a Halloween mask on should have just got a real old man. Dr. Swamp Penis and his bizarre reaction to a potentially deadly swamp penis. And why is Dr. Swamp Penis so scared of the dead bodies they find? But mesmerized by a potentially deadly swamp penis. Isn't he some kind of exobiologist? What did he expect to find on this mission? Too many characters to get to know. Too many red shirts just there to die off, so you can't form an attachment to any of them. Also, being one of the best realized characters, David is also one of the worst. We never truly discover his actual motivation.
What happens when Waylon is not around to program you anymore?
I suppose I'd be free.
You want that?
Want? Not a concept I'm familiar with. That being said, doesn't everyone want their parents dead?
I didn't.
Is he trying to be more human? Does he have a soul? Is he totally under Waylon's control? Or is he acting on his own initiative? Why open the door of the ship when Space Johnny Rotten's camera came back on? Just turn a camera at him or look out of the window? They would have known he was probably dead. Why take the chance? In case he is a mutant. Oh, he is. That could have saved a red shirt or two. Why no proper arsenal? Surely, they expected to meet aliens? What about insurance? Why just a flamethrower and a couple of pop guns? What was the point of the Vickers character? Did it matter she was Waylon's daughter, and why did she hate him so much? Why run away in a straight line from a donut rolling down a hill? The robot parallels drawn with David were just boring. We didn't care if she was or not, although she could have been a tranny, as her matey chair was for male patients only.
I need cesarean.
Error. This med pod is calibrated for male patients only.
Vickers was a complete non-entity in this film, kinda floating around in the background. Her death was weak, like they just needed to get rid of her. They should have had her survive the donut rolling, and for the alien to get her at the end. That would have been good. All that said, Vickers is the only character with half a noodle who tries to exercise some disease control when Holloway gets space AIDS. Maybe say, a bit like Ripley in the original.
Open the hatch.
Wait a minute. If we let it in, the ship could be infected. You know the quarantine procedure.
24 hours for decontamination.
Too many questions / plot holes. Why did the engineers create life? To then want to destroy it. Why leave cave paintings to invite the humans to come and find their weapons installation? With all of the sophisticated radar equipment aboard Prometheus, why did Holloway spot the temple from miles away? Does this guy have X-ray eyes? Why did Waylon instruct David to poison Holloway? For what purpose? Why did Waylon believe he would get immortality from a big blue smurf? Why didn't Shaw tell Yannick about the squid baby? After all, he told her he didn't want to take any of the goo home with him, if there were other weapon installations. Why didn't the engineer just go and get in another donut ship and finish its mission, instead deciding to go kill Shaw? After all, it wasn't bothered early on when it let her escape. Choosing to power up the first donut ship instead, why not set it on LV-426? Why not have this as the origin for Alien? Join a few dots at least. They can still have Shaw go off, looking for the engineers. It doesn't change anything. More unanswered questions here than Lost, the TV series. Lost was one of those shows which had the same problem, around season 3. They posed so many questions people started to lose interest, so they had to pull it back by answering a few of the questions. But guess what? Lost writer Damon Lindelof was behind Prometheus as well. Go figure. Pacing. Pacing is a big issue in this film. No more so than the opening scenes with a Smurf committing suicide to create life. By seeing it, it makes the later scene of the elephant mask unveiling redundant, as we already what the Smurf looks like. So there is no, well, moment. They look just like us. Similarly, the DNA revelation is also known to us, because we've seen it at the start. It seems the opening scene might have been added later, as an afterthought, to answer a few of the later numerous questions about the Smurfs' intentions. But this spoils the later build-up of tension. Why show David receiving some form of instruction? It makes you suspect Wayland is secretly still alive. After all, who else would David listen to? Wayland designed him. Why not just cut this scene and then have David poison Holloway? Make you believe David might be deranged, only to later reveal it was Wayland's idea.
I may be synthetic, but I'm not stupid.
The original script made more sense. It was a direct Alien tie-in. Set on LV-426. They kept their helmets on. Space Johnny Rotten wasn't the digital flying mapping ball carrier. He was just a geologist. Someone else brought the mapping balls, so he had more reason to go and get lost. It was the digital apparition that frightened him to run away, not the dead body. In the script, David's role was better explained, including his programming, to use Holloway and Shaw to discover the secret and then kill them both to ensure it fell into Wayland's hands. He explained this in the script. And the ship's not called Prometheus, it was called the Magellan. Seemed more appropriate for a ship on a voyage of discovery. Prometheus only makes sense if the humans know that the engineers are benevolent and want to guide the humans, which they don't.
Now, how many different ways do you want me to tell the same story?
Deleted scenes which need to go back in. There are some scenes which are brand new scenes and extensions of other scenes, which help clarify some of the events in Prometheus, and desperately need to go back in, including more characterization, which is badly needed. For instance, Dr. Swamp Penis discovers the first alien worms, which might help somewhat to explain his later over-exuberance when he meets the Swamp Penis. This next edit scene shows Space Johnny Rotten and Dr. Swamp Penis finding a shed skin in the temple, shortly after getting lost, which suggests it was an alien that killed all of the engineers. This was something hinted at during development. It doesn't add anything in particular, but is a nice alien-style touch. Mutated Space Johnny Rotten is not a lumbering zombie. In another cutscene he is a fast-moving alien warrior, which explains why the Prometheus red shirts can't hit him for shit. Extended scene of the engineer slowly stalking Shaw in the life pod at the end is so much more effective than his stage right block and tackle. David's explanation to Shaw of what the engineer told him when David asked where they were from. The engineer actually talking to David is itself another deleted scene. The engineer's answer was Paradise, without the Paradise tie-up. It doesn't make any sense why David spies on Shaw's dreams, and tells her about it later, which is also what Shaw's dad told her, in the dream, when she asked where her dead mother had gone.
with, and I don't think that you or I or anybody has the right to arbitrarily exterminate them.
And scenes which need taken out. The opening scene showing the Smurf's face. Or at least make it fleeting glimpses, so the reveal later of the head is more profound. It also makes Shaw's DNA discovery invalid as a twist, as we already know this from the beginning. Cut the scene of David receiving instruction from Wayland, as it raises suspicion that Wayland is probably still alive.
What did he say, David?
I don't think he'd want me to tell you.
Though when they reveal it later you have already figured it out. Cut the fanboy porn shot of the newborn alien. Unnecessary. Summary. Ultimately, Prometheus is a pretty film which raises too many questions as a smokescreen to hide dumb characters, poor logic, and bad writing. It leaves you at the end wondering what the film achieved. Shaw began the film looking for the engineers. Well, she pretty much ends it that way. We don't learn anything about them. It's clear that 20th Century Fox were worried about the negative criticism surrounding Prometheus, and for the Blu-ray release, decided to write all over the cover. Questions will be answered, and send Ridley Scott out on a major PR exercise to clear things up. But they aren't clear. It doesn't have to answer all of the questions either, just some of them, to keep the audience interested. All that said, I can't entirely hate this movie as the visuals are so stunning that it deserves a watch just for this. On Blu-ray it looks amazing, if you can ignore everything else. Let's hope they learn from this, in part 2. So long.